for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to a very special edition of Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. I'm Darren Gibson. While I'm off this week, we dug into the archives and we pulled some audio. The first being an interview that we did with then high school senior Katelyn Campbell, who fought her public school about sex education that did not contain factual information. And we'll get into that in just a moment. And then we have a special audio clip that's never aired to our national affiliates. We have audio of Jack Prince as special correspondent for the show from Philadelphia at the 2016 Democratic National Convention. This interview was conducted the day after over 100 Bernie Sanders delegates walked out of the convention and hijacked the media tent to protest the treatment that they received at the hands of DNC staff members. It's a great clip that includes audio from a Michigan Democratic Party official calling into the show under a fake name. So before we get started, a couple of reminders that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can follow us on Tumblr at southpawsradioshow.tumblr.com. You can follow us on YouTube by doing a search for Southpaws Radio. And you can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime at Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Podvine, and Pandora by doing a search for Southpaws. Once you found our logo, you found us. We send links to our weekly episodes to our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, and YouTube accounts. You can listen to us on Global Community Radio Channel 1 every Saturday night at 11 Eastern. And you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and KEPJ in San Antonio, Texas. So be sure to listen to us on those local Pacifica affiliates. Let's go to our first audio clip from our May 22nd, 2013 episode. I'm in the studio with Joe Elder and special guest co-host Nathan Phenicie, who is taking the place of Jim Goerner, who was off that week. We interviewed Katelyn Campbell, who at the time was living in Charleston, West Virginia. She was a high school senior getting ready to graduate and go on to college. Her public high school had a speaker come in to give an abstinence-only sex education talk. The speaker gave the audience misinformation and was slut-shaming. Katelyn didn't think it was right. She then contacted the media. It was after Katelyn originally talked to the media that things got interesting. Let's go ahead and start the interview right now. Right now, we want to go to our very special guest on the phone. Joining us from Charleston, West Virginia is Katelyn Campbell. Katelyn, welcome to Southpaws. Thank you for calling us.
No problem.
Okay, why don't you explain to everybody how you ended up getting your 15 minutes of fame, so to speak?
Well, basically, about a month ago, a speaker named Pam Sunzel came to my high school in Charleston, West Virginia. And I go to a public school, and she presented a really biased, some would say religious presentation about why abstinence is the only way to protect yourself from sexually transmitted diseases. And her speech, I guess, could be best described as slut-shaming. It really attacked girls who've been sexually active.
Yeah, didn't she make comments that I can tell if you're using birth control, stuff like that?
She said, if you're using birth control, your parents probably hate you and they're irresponsible parents. And that she could look out at anyone and tell if they were promiscuous.
Oh, wow. That's what it was, yeah.
She said she could just look at him, huh?
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely ridiculous.
You can tell by sight.
So, of course, you and several other students objected to that type of speech.
Yeah, myself and a lot of other members of student council spoke out about the assembly, and I personally was retaliated against by my principal. He called me into his office and threatened to call my college, Wellesley, and tell them I have bad character and that I'm a backstabber, which actually backfired on his part. They tweeted at me saying that they're perfectly happy to have me at Wellesley next fall.
Yeah, and they have been very supportive of you. You've actually have had a lot of support across the country, let alone just West Virginia. This has gone completely national.
Which I think that's the craziest part for me, is I never imagined that it would become such a large issue. But it really is important to educate teenagers about sex and how to protect themselves, so I can understand why it got as large as it did.
And I think a lot of people are talking about the abstinence-only programs and just how effective they are, and I think
Pardon,
that's
I can't
another
hear you.
reason. Oh, I'm sorry. I think the abstinence-only program has been talked about a lot, and that's another reason why I went nationally, was because it's been a topic that people have been discussing, just saying how valuable abstinence-only programs are, being that most states that use those...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Keep going, Joe.
I'm sorry. Basically, because most states that use abstinence-only programs, they are not very high in the sense of preventing teen pregnancies.
Pardon, can you repeat that?
The abstinence-only programs usually don't result in very high success rate, is what Joe was talking about.
Yeah, because you're dealing with teenagers, and obviously we're at a stage in our lives where we're really high on hormones, and a lot of people are going to have sex, whether or not it's the right thing to do for them, because sex is a choice. So the reality is, teenagers are going to have sex no matter what, so they might as well be educated with what to do when they do make that decision, rather than being told, just don't do it and you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly, and that's been like that for many, many years. And there's still a lot of people, even to this day, that still just don't understand, oh, well, just say no. No, that's not reality. That's not what's actually happening. I mean, you've got kids experimenting with sex because, frankly, nobody's telling them anything. Or in the case of this Pam lady, giving them wrong information.
Yeah, I know at my school, I have friends who didn't really know about sex until they got to middle school and someone told them on the bus, or something of that nature. So it's not a conversation that all kids have with their parents. So if the first thing they hear about birth control is Pam Senzel saying, hey, like, no condom's actually going to protect you, so just don't use them at all, that sends a bad message to students about birth control and its effectiveness, and it's not a message that's true.
Is that what she actually said? This is Nate here. Is that what she actually said, no condom will protect you, or is that the message she had?
One of my favorite quotes of hers was, no condom will protect your heart. And she insinuated that even in the case of AIDS, a condom can't protect you from contracting an STI. And while no condom is 100% effective, but it's the 99.999% effective, I mean, in terms of preventing contraction of STIs, she put forth that the few instances in which an STI does result from using condoms or other forms of birth control, she hyperbolized that and made it seem like you're going to get AIDS whether you use a condom or not.
So at your school district, was that like the only sex ed you guys had? What's the culture there? I mean, are these other students buying into this abstinence only? Do they have kind of a religious tradition, or is there a lot of backlash against it?
I live in a pretty religious community. West Virginia is in the Bible Belt. Mm-hmm. But still at the same time, GW has been seen pretty regularly as a progressive school. Although we don't really have a comprehensive sex ed program, I certainly wasn't taught about more than just say no in my health class. It's generally accepted that if you're going to have sex, use a condom, that's fine. But I really saw Pam Senzel's assembly as a huge step back because it kind of threw away any of the sex ed that we've gotten in school to that point. And especially in the community, it's very divided. I've had parents tell me, you're crazy, I can't believe you're speaking up against this, Pam Senzel did the right thing. But then I have others saying, our kids need to know. And actually in my county, there's already been comprehensive sex ed curriculum approved by the Board of Education. It just hasn't been implemented in the high school.
Have they said why?
Really, I think it's an issue of bureaucracy. And it's sort of at the principal's discretion. So if they don't want to start teaching comprehensive sex ed, then they won't. And there are actually organizations that have tried to help with implementation that have grants and will pay for substitute teachers to come in while the health teachers are being trained. But none of the principals have been willing to take on the opportunity to implement comprehensive sex ed.
Do you think maybe they're fearing some of the parents in the district? I mean, so you said it's a little bit religious, so do you think...
Yeah, I mean, with every time we talk about sex in school, there's going to be some kind of backlash. But really, I think in this situation, just from my own personal belief and the belief of a lot of people in the community, despite the backlash on this issue, it's the right thing to do, and it's the right thing to teach scientific fact in schools. And I've actually looked at the curriculum they approved called Reducing the Risk, and the first 3 lessons are about abstinence, and the next is about refusal skills. So it really does teach abstinence as the best way, but then it presents other options. So it's a pretty balanced program. And I think if administrators looked at it from that perspective, then it's a lot more user-friendly and community-friendly than they'd think.
Oh, absolutely. Since your principal, George Allenbacher, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, since he called you in the office and, threatened to contact Wellesley College and say that you're a backstabber and everything else, has there been any other sort of talks with him, any sorts of threats from him?
Actually, with the help of my lawyer, Mike Callahan, I filed an injunction against Mr. Allenbacher to prevent him from further discriminating against me in any way. That injunction wasn't granted. The judge said on the grounds that there wasn't any proof that he could do me any future harm. But actually, about a week ago, I was called to Mr. Allenbacher's again with another group of highest honor graduates, and he suspended our right to speak at our graduation, which is actually this afternoon. And he says that it's part of a larger policy, but when we asked him specifically why, he said because I said so. So in that respect, I mean, he definitely has retaliated against me again, and I won't be allowed to speak at my graduation tonight.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you were supposed to have a meeting with him, you and the other students that were affected. You were supposed to have a meeting with him, I believe, on Monday, and it sounds like that wasn't fruitful at all.
No. We met with him yesterday afternoon, and we presented our case. We put forth a petition with 200 signatures from seniors, mostly from seniors, and then a few from underclassmen, saying that we want them to speak at graduation. And he literally laughed at us and told us to leave his office. No, that he wouldn't let us speak.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is there anything you want to say today, maybe, that you would have put in your graduation speech? I mean,
Yeah, there's been a lot of calls for you to publish your speech on your Facebook page, which is the Friends of Katelyn Campbell. Are you planning on doing that?
Yeah, certainly after graduation tonight, or probably actually tomorrow morning, so I'm going to Project Graduation afterwards. I'm going to publish my speech online, as well as the speeches of other students who weren't able to speak at graduation because of this action. Basically, my graduation speech was about how GW has been like a family to me. I'm a student body officer. I've been really involved in student council. And I'm a student. I transferred to GW. I didn't know a single person when I got there, and I'm leaving with a group of friends and a graduating class that I've been really close with. And my speech talks about how it's not about politics here. It's about the class of 2013. And I make it very clear that it's not about me. It's about us and what we've been through together. And that's really why I wanted to give this speech. So it was more of my, bidding an adieu to GW, giving, a last, oral hug to my class.
Aww. Yeah, that sounds very wonderful. I'm looking forward to reading your speech tomorrow.
Thanks.
Yeah. Real quickly, I want to get your opinion on, there's a situation that's going on locally here in Michigan. There were 2 pregnant students at a high school up by where I grew up, in the town of White Cloud, Michigan. They asked to have their pictures put in the yearbook, basically showing that they were pregnant. And the school said, absolutely no way. Profile picture, shoulders up is fine. Nothing else. No baby bump showing. What's your opinion on that?
Well, actually, 2 years ago, there was a young woman at my school who was pregnant, and she had a full-page spread in the yearbook that her parents paid for, pictures of her pregnant, her in the hospital, her with her baby. So really, if you're pregnant in high school, that's probably not the best thing, but you can't delete that from your life. I think in that respect, the school can't hide what's true. Sometimes students get pregnant and you deal with it. So that just seems kind of ridiculous to me that they would try to cover something up for perhaps the sake of PR.
Yeah, that's exactly why they're doing it.
Well, especially pro-life conservatives, they want the girls to have these babies. They should be proud of it. If these women are pregnant, going to have the baby, that's something to be proud of. That's a miracle of life. So
I was speaking with one of my friends the other day, and it kind of rung true with me when I heard you talking about the pregnant women. Like with pro-lifers, they want you to keep the baby, but when the baby's born, they don't want to take care of it. They don't want to pay for welfare. So it's kind of a weirdly double-sided coin because no one can really. They don't really agree on what should be done afterwards. They just don't want you to abort it.
It's a no-win situation, what they want to create.
What we call that pro-fetus. They're not pro-life, they're pro-fetus. They want all the rights for the baby, but the minute that the baby's born, it's no head start, no help for the mother if she's a single mother, no help for the baby whatsoever, but you have to have the child, and it's just an interesting concept that I think the right takes on. And
really, I mean, a child isn't a punishment. And not trying to take a religious side here, but a child is supposed to be seen as a blessing. And if you're if you're making the mother keep a child that she doesn't really want, might as well help her out. I mean, help the child.
Yes, exactly. I know we're coming up on time. I know we got to let you go because you have some rehearsals to go to for graduation, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Real quickly, what are you going to be studying up at Wellesley?
That's a good question. I'm either going to study chemistry or American studies. Chemistry is a passion, but I haven't done it since I was a sophomore. But if I end up doing American studies, I'll go on to law school.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's
I think you would be a great attorney.
Thank you.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say public speaking, obviously you're very eloquent in speaking. Maybe public speaking might be something down the road. I'm
speaking at a NARAL conference in St. Louis. It's the National Abortion Rights League in June, which I'm excited for. But certainly I've gotten used to public speaking in this situation.
Wow. Well, yeah, good luck. We'll definitely keep in touch with you and stay abreast of everything that you're going to be doing.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Katelyn. We'll let you go so that you can head on to graduation practice.
Great. Thanks. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
Bye. And that was Katelyn Campbell, folks, joining us from West Virginia. Very eloquent.
Yeah, with people like that bringing up the younger generation, that gives me a lot of hope. She's very mature and understanding of the issues. She's not rabidly partisan. She wants science-based curriculum, and she understands that it's a diverse community, and that it should include abstinence education, but not as the only thing. That it's just part of the spectrum. And
yep. Absolutely. It's not saying that abstinence only is completely invalid and wrong, because there is validity to not having sex to not get STDs
kids,
or STIs.
Yeah, we should tell kids, it is your choice.
But there has to be another thing there for the level of people who maybe aren't religious or don't hold those beliefs to a moral standard that others do, that need to have a different access point, that know that maybe their kid is going to be engaged in sexual activity when they're young. They need to have access and need to understand how the sexual process works and how condoms work and how that works.
And that's the thing. With condoms too. This presenter, this speaker said, that they won't work. Well, you know what? If you're not taught how to properly use them, that the percentage goes down even more.
And that was our interview with Katelyn Campbell from May 22nd, 2013. We decided to catch up with her several months later. So our next piece of audio comes from the Christmas 2013 episode of Southpaws. I'm joined in studio by Jim Goerner as we interview Katelyn Campbell to see what she's up to at that point. Take a listen. Wellesley backed you up 100%, and you just completed your first semester there. So how was it? How was your first semester?
It was completely different from anything I'd ever expected. I walked on campus, and I never really felt like I belonged in high school, but then I got to Wellesley and thought, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I've never been so challenged. I've never felt so... I definitely felt the culture shock of moving from West Virginia to Massachusetts. But I think I've really learned a lot about what it means to be progressive and what progressive issues are that I haven't necessarily been exposed to before, like gender pronouns and things like that. But Wellesley is definitely the best place I could have ended up.
Yeah, I can imagine the culture between West Virginia and Massachusetts, but yeah, I assume that is a pretty big difference, generally speaking, of course.
Yeah. You were saying that you've been exposed to more like progressive causes. What have you gotten involved in since you've arrived at Wellesley?
Well, since I've been at Wellesley, one of the main projects I've been working on is a program at school called Fossil Free Wellesley, which is an initiative to have the college divest from fossil fuels. Given that I'm from West Virginia, I've definitely seen a lot of the effects of mountaintop removal mining and mining in general. But also, as fracking is becoming more and more relevant in my home state, I definitely understand why divestment from fossil fuels is relevant. So my student org, who is related to Fossil Free, is supposed to have a second meeting with the board of directors of Wellesley in February, and they'll give us a final decision as to whether or not they'll divest. But I'm also staying pretty involved with sex ed issues and especially abortion issues on campus. A lot of my activism has sort of moved online just because I'm not back at home where I was doing most of my work. But over the summer, I'm looking at internships perhaps with Planned Parenthood or West Virginia Free, which is sort of the West Virginia version of Planned Parenthood, in order to make what I'm doing more concrete.
Oh, that's wonderful. I that would be a great opportunity for you in interning with Planned Parenthood. I know you've been very active with sex education and reproductive rights. I know you had a speaking engagement the last time we talked. You had a speaking engagement coming up sometime this year, or in 2014.
Yeah, I'm speaking at the Secular Students Alliance Conference in Columbus, Ohio, this coming July 2014. I'm giving a presentation sort of about my experience as a secular student dealing with religion in public school, but also about youth activism and how it's possible to speak up despite being below the age of 18 or very young.
I got a question for you. Speaking of younger activists, have you heard about this 12-year-old girl in North Carolina that has been basically schooling everybody about voting rights?
I have not heard about her.
Yeah. North Carolina has been passing all sorts of voter restrictions,
right.
Voter ID and kicking people off the rolls and
shortening voting times.
Voting times. Basically, they have become the worst offenders as far as any of the states in this country. And there has been a 12-year-old girl who has been protesting all of these different voter ID laws, including traveling to the state capitol and protesting pretty much every Monday. I know they've got a name for it, and I can't remember. Do you remember, Jim?
No.
It was something. It was basically every Monday they would go and protest, and there were protesters that were getting arrested.
Well, and the governor McCrory is just completely ignoring her. As if she's some little girl who doesn't know anything.
Sent cookies out to her, like, okay, good little girl, now go on.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's been going on down there. So I was just curious if you had talked to her or any other activists.
I haven't talked to her, but now that I think about it, I need to shoot her an email or get her number or something, because I think that's really important what she's doing.
Yeah, it really is quite amazing when you hear the story. And that girl is, it's like that girl should have her own TV show already. I mean,
know.
she's that sharp.
I think it's particularly profound that at 12 years old, she's willing to speak up and say this, and understand that what's going on isn't right.
Right.
So I have so much pride for her right now.
Yeah,
oh my God.
there was actually, I saw a partial interview with her parents. And like, did you put her up to this? Are you telling her what to say? And she's like, nope, she's doing this all by herself. So,
her name is Madison Kimry.
Okay.
And she's been on. I believe she's been on Rachel Maddow's show already.
Yeah, I think she was on Good Morning America once.
Yeah. So she has been making the rounds on TV. And that's really awesome at that age to start becoming politically active, because let's admit it, a lot of young people just don't care about politics, and they don't realize the effect that politics has on their everyday life.
One of the things I've noticed, especially since I've come to college, is even people who care about politics, they'll post things on Facebook, but they don't really do anything about issues that they care about. And I think that's something that's plaguing my generation more than probably any generation before. Because of social media, we're willing to talk about issues like that, like sex ed or voting rights or just women's rights in general or reproductive rights.
Right.
But when it comes to actually putting feet on the ground and going out and writing letters to people saying, this isn't right, or going and meeting with people or appearing on television, we're falling short. And that's something that I talk to a lot of people about at Wellesley, and I think once you get the idea in your head that it is possible to contact local news media and do interviews and get your message out there. I think it's a lot more accessible. But just taking that first step to going forth into concrete activism is often the hardest part.
Yeah. Just curious, Katelyn, have you decided on a major yet?
Yeah, I'm an American Studies major,
Okay.
which it's a combination of American history, law, and women's and gender studies and queer studies. But I eventually plan on going to law school, and I'd love to end up working for the ACLU doing civil liberties rights.
Okay, great.
Oh, my goodness, that would be awesome. Yeah, and I've told you this before. You are very well spoken for somebody that's, 18, 19 years old. I mean, like I said, most people your age don't even care about politics.
Yeah.
And don't even get involved.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So I guess, so have you been involved in any student organizations since you've started at Wellesley?
I haven't started any student orgs at Wellesley, but I'm a senator as part of college government, which is the only position on college government a first year can hold. But I've been a part of two main committees. One which addresses safe spaces for minority and LGBTQ students on campus, and also another regarding just like general campus policy regarding like our one card, which is our student ID. But especially, I've sort of dabbled in more minority rights issues on campus because Wellesley, as great as it is, and as much as I love it, they recruit so many minority students, but then they don't leave a place for them, and they don't acknowledge that they have different needs from perhaps, like, I'm a WASP. I mean, I'll say it right now. So my needs are very different from someone who is African American and has strong cultural ties to whatever background they came from. So that's another issue I've sort of taken up lately with Senate.
Oh, that's awesome. So yeah, it sounds like you've been keeping pretty busy, especially with all your studies. How many credit hours are you taking?
Wellesley only allows you to take 4 courses a semester, but I was contemplating a chem major this semester, so I was in class I probably had 5 classes worth of work. But I also rode crew first semester, so I was either working out or doing school most of the time.
Wow.
Oh wow! So you're on the crew team?
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be rowing next semester because I injured my hip, but first semester, yeah, I was a starboard rower.
Wow. Are you, is there, forgive my ignorance on crew, but isn't there, it's like a 2-person team and like a 6-person?
You can either row in 4-person boats or 8-person boats. And on the collegiate level, at least for Wellesley, because it's Division 3, we generally row 8-person boats. So it's 8 rowers and a coxswain to steer.
Wow. I didn't know that. You must be in good shape. You can probably kick our butts.
Yeah, there's no way. First off, I'm scared of water to begin with, and there's no way that I could row, especially that fast. Yeah, I would think with doing crew, I would figure injuries would be more with rotator cuff, shoulders, arms, stuff like that, not hips. What'd you do?
Well, a lot of rowing is with your legs, but pretty much all it is, the way my coach describes it, is just a lot of twerking.
Water twerking?
Yeah. So when you in addition to rowing with your arms, there's a seat that's on a slide, and you move forward and backwards. So my hip flexor is what's injured. It's like sort of like where your leg meets your hip. So where I was just using it so much, tendons are like really sore and hurt.
Yeah. I believe it. I played baseball, and I had a hip flexor once, and I literally couldn't walk straight for about 3 weeks. So, yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah. By the way, Jim, did you know that my alma mater, Grand Valley, has a crew team?
I did not.
Yeah, I've seen them because the Grand River goes right past the campus. I've seen them practicing on the river.
Well, yeah, I see that crew, that boathouse there, that there is crew. But yeah, and I know in Massachusetts that's quite a big thing, especially the Harvard Yale crew teams are.
Oh yeah, the
big
Charles
time.
is like one of the birthplaces of American rowing, and Wellesley actually had the first all-women's rowing team. Wellesley was kind of a pioneer in the women's rowing sport.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so now do you just take on other Division III teams, or?
We are part of the Southern Sisters Conference, but it's not all the original Southern Sisters. I think it's most of them plus Simmons College, which is another women's college in Massachusetts. But I think 2 years ago, we ended up going to nationals and placing third. So Wellesley's team is pretty good within Division III.
Oh, wow. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to keep an eye on that. That's amazing. That's awesome.
They're some of the strongest women I've ever met. One of the girls on my team is a pre-Olympian, and working out with her is just terrifying.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot the Crowe is an Olympic sport.
Yeah, we're the who are the Facebook guy? The Winklevoss twins. They rode Crowe, did Crowe for the Olympics. I think they finished. Was it 6th? They didn't medal, but they were the top American team.
The U.S. women's team hasn't lost a race in, I think, 20 years.
Wow.
That's amazing. Real quickly, before we let you go here, any updates on what's going on back home?
Well, my sister actually goes to a different high school than I do, but I was talking to her about her health class that she's taking. And apparently for sex ed, they've been given a huge lecture on different diseases. I know she had to look up pictures of an STD and write a paper on it. So definitely at her high school, sex ed is much better. I haven't had a lot of contact with my high school just because of the fact that my relationship with my principal isn't very good. But it's my understanding that the environment there is a lot more neutral when it comes to sex ed issues. And I think that students are getting the better sex ed in class. But as soon as I graduated, I heard through the grapevine that our superintendent started negotiating with West Virginia Free to get good sex ed in schools. I think really what happened with me was the push that needed to go forth in order for my home county and really for the state of West Virginia to adopt strong, comprehensive sex ed.
Yeah, and I'm very glad that you did that. So
yeah, 'cause old guys like you and me, there wasn't such a thing as sex ed when we were in school.
No.
I mean, it was just you learned about it on the playground, basically.
Yeah.
Basically, all we learned was in phys ed, and that was them showing us old movies about, make sure that you wash your armpits and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean that's the honest truth.
That or you wait to get the birds and bees talk from your parents. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm dating a guy who goes to Northeastern. I was talking to him about what happened with me, and he just thought it was ridiculous. He said, where I went to school, they basically just taught us how to have sex in sex ed, and they talked about birth control, and it was just the expectation. I don't think he's ever really spent any time in the South-ish, I guess, as West Virginia is. But the idea that you would ever say anything that wasn't truth in school just blew his mind.
Yeah.
I think it's something that needs to be addressed and needs to be brought to people's attention that students aren't getting sex ed in school in certain states, and that needs to change.
Yeah. No, I agree 100% with you.
Yeah. It seems like it's mostly red states where the education just isn't there.
And I think it's hilarious because West Virginia is registered blue but votes red. I don't think it's the people of West Virginia that are necessarily the problem. I think it's just the lack of asking that question, have you guys talked about sex at school? It's just not quite in the cultural norms yet here to make sex part of the discussion and have it be kosher and not awkward.
Yeah. Okay. Jim's computer just started talking at him for no reason.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so he's been trying to shut that off now.
I guess Nick really does need to look at this computer. I have no idea what that was.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we got our guru in here today to take care of the computers and such. So, all right. Well, tell you what, we're gonna go ahead and let you go, but we definitely want to stay in touch with you and keep up to date on what's happening with you. So.
Of course. I'm free all of January, but shoot me a message or call me anytime.
Okay. Absolutely. Hey, thank you so much for your coming on, Katelyn. We really appreciate it.
It's no problem. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you
sure
too.
will. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Bye. And there's our interview with Katelyn that aired on Christmas Day 2013. Since we last talked to Katelyn, she has been busy with her activism. In 2016, she was a recipient of the Harry S. Truman Scholarship. Young West Virginia also awarded her with a Power Award. She also graduated from Wellesley College, which supported her activism. As of 2021, she was a Ph.D. candidate in American Studies at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. If you want to find out more about Katelyn, she has an official website. Go to KatelynMCampbell.com, and we'll have a link to that website on our official Facebook page. Go to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show to find that link. Before we go to our next piece of audio, I want to give a little bit of background behind it. In 2016, not only was I hosting Southpaws, I was also the station manager of the Pacifica affiliate based in Kentwood, Michigan. Unfortunately for the listeners of West Michigan, that station is no longer a Pacifica affiliate. I was also producing our then sister program, Women Libs Radio, and I was also helping in the production of several other local radio programs. This audio is from the July 27th, 2016 episode. I'm in the studio with April Crowe, Stan Ward, and Jim Chase, and Jack Prince is on the phone. Jack was not part of the show at that point officially, but he was a special correspondent in Philadelphia covering the Democratic National Convention of 2016. This interview took place the day after over 100 Bernie Sanders delegates left the convention and held a protest inside the media tent. They were protesting their treatment by DNC staff members at the convention. We've got this audio chopped up in a couple of pieces, and I'll explain why in just a minute. Let's go ahead and play the start of this audio right now. However, we got to get to our phone call. We've got our special correspondent, Jack Prince, is in Philadelphia right now at the Democratic National Convention. Hey, Jack, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
Doing wonderful.
Good, Jack.
Yeah,
Morning.
so what a wild night last night. I had to interrupt the Attitude with Arnie Arneson because we had some breaking news that at least 100 and probably more Bernie Sanders delegates basically stormed the media compound tent and did a sit-in over there.
Right in front of us. It was amazing. First of all, I have to warn you, I don't know how long my voice will work. It's kind of worn out, yeah. Wow. But that was symptomatic of chaotic floor at the convention, where I have to say the DNC has been up to its normal stunts. First of all, they gave the impression that this was going to be a roll call atmosphere against the backdrop at the Republican convention just a week earlier. But in typical fashion, the DNC yesterday morning called the delegates to go to the sites at 9 o'clock in the morning and vote for their nominee. That was at 9 o'clock, in complete contradiction and completely under the radar screen of the media. So the delegates went, they voted, and then they were contacted back that if they were too boisterous or had placards for Bernie, that they would lose their credentials to even enter the convention. That never showed up on the media. Neither did it show up in any way where they went and removed any visible sign of Bernie, stickers, anything at all from the floor of the convention.
Yeah,
we know
I did see one story on the internet that apparently members of the DNC staff were removing Bernie Sanders signs from Bernie delegates, and
exactly.
So there was one outlet, and I forget which one it was. I think it might have been Raw Story.
And that was really the point of anger from the thousands of protesters there. The DNC and its connection, its illicit and ugly connection to the Hillary campaign, revealed through the WikiLeaks. So the chants that you're hearing, maybe the most prominent is "Hell no, DNC, we won't vote for Hillary," and that's orchestrated by, like I said, thousands of voices. There's a fence that separates the entrance to the convention from the mass of protesters. That's maybe a 10-foot span. It was 10 foot. Now they've lengthened it to about 25 feet. And the people line up on that fence. That's the one you see in the media a lot. And when those delegates go by, it is a war. They are claiming the DNC is corrupt, that we were lied to, we were cheated, the election was stolen, it's election fraud. The Hillary delegates will come over and verbally, argue and fight, and it's a point of contention. So much so that many of the Bernie people, I saw a woman in her 60s, jumped the fence yesterday to get into the area, and of course were quickly arrested. But it's a scene that is telltale to American citizens who look at the smoking gun proof of the cabal that existed between Hillary, the DNC, and the media. Now, that's not debatable. That's not on the Russian shoulders. That is proof that anybody can go to the Internet and see. I want to mention one small part of that WikiLeaks. That is the attorney, the personal attorney to Hillary Clinton, giving directives to the media and the DNC together, collaborating together for the correct spin on many issues. You can't ask for clear evidence of the attack against democracy when you have a manipulated candidate before the primary ever even started. Mm-hmm. And these Americans on these streets in 100-degree weather are here to fight for that democracy. And they are sickened by what they've seen.
Absolutely.
I have a question. This is Stan. But what about the fact that Bernie has thrown in his association with Hillary, and so are you guys still for Bernie even though he's supporting Hillary and has endorsed her?
No, the movement goes on, the progressive movement. He is in the minds of the people I've seen in the committees I've sat in, part now of the DNC establishment, which is the epitome, the very heart of the problem with politics in America. So they've turned their back. Well, he turned his back on us. That's the response. And I talked with Jimmy Dore yesterday, right down in front of the town hall.
Oh, awesome! Cool. Jimmy's been on our show a couple of times.
Yeah.
I had no idea he was in Philly. I forgot he's covering for the Young Turks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the whole group of them were there, and there's many personalities, but I always thought Jimmy was extremely accurate in his progressivism, and his spin on Bernie's stance was one of being totally let down. Not that we hate Bernie, but from this point on, we don't use him as a spearhead for the movement.
So you're saying the movement is bigger than Bernie now?
Which is what it should be.
It's what it always has been. The hashtag, right. Not me, us.
I have to say something here that probably get kicked out of this room here, but after all, Bernie is a politician.
That's what it appears at this point. More so than we thought. Yes.
He is a politician.
But we wouldn't be aware of any of this stuff had it not been for him.
If you remember when Obama was running for president, Reverend Wright said that very same thing. Mm-hmm. After all, he is just a politician. Mm-hmm. So Bernie, and in politics means that you do some compromises for some other good that you see in your mind. And
I will go on record with this, and we're going to find the clip, and I'll play it in a couple of weeks here. But I was reminded of this when Bernie first announced that he was running for president as a Democrat. Joe Elder on this very show said that the DNC was going to put the screws to him the way that I forget who the Republicans put the screws to Ron Paul. Right. And guess what? Joe was right.
It happened. And that's what Chris Hedges said too. He predicted that.
And you know what though? Even though Debbie had to fall on her sword, I understand that Hillary pulled her to her heart. So
how bad is that?
Give her a job, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, an honorary sort of, it's said to be sort of a meaningless position.
Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
Which could change, because that would be the right thing to say right now.
Of course it would be.
Right, Darren? And then after everything's over, well, we've decided that meaningless job is going to change to something more important.
They've lied and manipulated before. You think I'm going to believe them now? Horse crap.
Well, I got
one thing I was going to mention is that, the Vermont delegation walked out, and they taped their mouth and so forth. You've mentioned that. But many of the delegates, I talked to the one from West Virginia, were ready to do that even the first night. They were hoping, they were praying that Bernie would take the golden political opportunity to get to the stage and say, in light of the WikiLeaks revelations, I break my endorsement to Hillary Clinton. I stand with the will of the people, which is for a genuine, non-monetary political process. It would have started a huge revolution, which, if I'm not mistaken, Darren, is what he announced his campaign was all about. He didn't take that step. And there you saw, I'm sure, the tears of the delegates, not just from Vermont, but from all of the states, including out in the park, families with kids there that were absolutely heartbroken with his comments. I will stand with her.
There were caravans coming from as far as California.
Right. Yeah.
The music artist Nako Bear from Medicine for the People caravan from California all the way to Philadelphia. There was a caravan that left Flint Thursday evening that was going to Philadelphia. Bernie supporters.
I have a point here. Bernie managed to get Hillary to make a lot of concessions. Wouldn't you agree on that? And which ones did he leave, in your opinion, did he leave out that she did not commit to?
Well, I think the essential philosophical need to break the monetary relationship with Wall Street and with big business, that's his keynote issue. How many concessions have been there is debatable. And again, the old rap is that no matter what she says at this point, I mean, she's telling people that when she gets elected, she'll open up the UFO files. And I suppose that'll get you a few 100,000 votes. But is she candid? Will she follow through on anything she says? Look at the polls. People just don't believe it.
Remember what President Obama said in 2008 when he was running. He said she will say anything and do nothing to get elected.
Right. That's exactly right.
I have a question in regards to. I mean, I'm very flummoxed over the whole decision and which way to go. But Bernie, we have trusted him with this movement, and I'm not saying to go against your own moral compass. I think you should absolutely trust your own thought process and reasoning. But previously, though, we have trusted him to be the embodiment of this movement.
Right.
And if he is now endorsing Hillary and going that way instead of seizing that golden moment, is he still looking out for our best interest? I mean, at what point do we just then dismiss him now, or can we trust that he knows something that we don't? I mean, do you think he's really just been whipped into submission?
You know, that's the debate around every campfire, every conversation pool out here. I've even heard people say that his family was threatened if he didn't do that. I personally don't believe that's the case. But I'm giving that as an example of how varied the reasons for the motivation that Bernie took. But to answer your explicit question, I do think it's an individual moral question. I'm not going to show any enmity to Bernie, and I certainly embrace all of his policies. But to look to him as the rallying point, I don't think that can happen now. I don't think that will happen. He can be referred to, but he was the cutting edge. He was the spear point of that whole movement. He got us there. He just dropped us once he got there. That's the hard part to swallow.
Yep. Yeah. Now, I want to stop the audio right here because I'm getting ready to put another caller on the line. This person called in and identified herself as Mary. At the time, I thought maybe it was Mary Harrington from Women Libs Radio, who was also the assistant program director at that radio station. But this person was not Mary. It was a fake name that was used by then Michigan 3rd Congressional Chair Traci Kornak, who was also an attorney in West Michigan. Traci is now the treasurer of the Michigan Democratic Party. Take a listen to the lies spewed by Traci Kornak using the name Mary. I think we got another caller on line 3. Is this Mary?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Good. So I've been listening to your show today, and I'm just wondering why there's all this talk and focus on negativity and why we're not talking about history. I mean,
because nobody else is talking about this. Nobody else in the corporate mainstream media has said one damn word about any of this stuff. Only Pacifica has covered any of this.
Well,
That's right.
I don't agree with you. I've seen it all over the TV and newspapers today, and I think that what's happening on your show really isn't any different than that which you complain of with the DNC. The fact of the matter is we have a nominee now. If you share Bernie's values that he fought for, and I supported Bernie, that you know, it's time for us to unite. And if we're going to keep the movement going forward, we need to stop the belly aching. You know, I know it takes some time to heal, but we need to move forward.
Yeah, and I was just told that you're not actually married. So bye. Don't pull that crap on my show and on my station.
Yeah, the trolls are ubiquitous, Darren. They're all over the place.
Yep.
We even caught them sending people into the crowds to try and direct us into crazy logistics. So, you know, take everybody over here, you know, behind these trees. And we go, why? Well, and then we found out they were getting their directives right from the DNC to try and disperse the crowds. So they never stop. And I think the story is you have thousands of Americans. We didn't see a single parade of any Clinton supporters out in the heat. The contract was stark. There are these huge hotels, very expensive hotels, where you'd see the black limousines with the Hillary delegates coming out, getting into the limousines, and on the other side of the street you had an image of democracy, of people standing there from all over the country, not with $1,000 rooms per night, but with a heart for democracy. The contrast was absolutely stark. And, of course, the name attributed to those so-called liberals are limousine liberals.
Yep, I agree with you there.
Well, listen, guys, my voice, I'm going to go get some hot tea and some honey.
Lemon and honey?
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
But thanks for letting me talk, and I know it's an emotional thing. I know my emotions are still sticking through, but it's been an amazing spectacle, and I'm glad I could share some of it with you guys.
That sounds great. Hey, thank you so much for the call, Jack.
You.
I appreciate it. Hey, stay in touch with me, okay?
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So there's the audio of me hanging up on Traci Kornak, the 3rd Congressional District Chair for Michigan at that time. Now, what had happened while she was talking, Jim Chase scribbled a note and said, "That's not Mary, that's Traci Kornak." For a little bit of background, Traci called up my boss at the time, the owner of the station, and wanted me fired because on the March 23rd, 2016 episode of Southpaws, after Bernie got screwed in Arizona, I went on the air and I said that I will never give another goddamn penny to the Democratic Party. For that, she called my boss that day and demanded that I be fired. I found out because my boss called me the following day after I had just left a mental health counseling appointment. I can tell you where I was and what I was driving that day. But I wasn't the only one that recognized Traci Kornak's voice. Longtime listener Andrew called in and identified her as well. Take a listen. We got Andrew on line 3. Hey, Andrew, you want to make a quick comment?
Yeah, hey, quick comment. Hey, that caller that you just let off the air, I've heard her. I know that voice, and I know that Mary, quote-unquote Mary, has called in on different occasions. And we know who you are, Mary. I'll only say the first name. Traci from Michigan 3rd. Traci from Michigan 3rd. You're just wrong that you won't use your own name. Now, I'm done with that.
I'm going to stop the audio right here, because Andrew goes on to talk about another radio show host at the station at the time. That person is now the owner of that station. We'll listen to Andrew's comments at that time, and then I have some commentary. Take a listen.
Darren and I know both, and a lot of Bernie delegates and Bernie fans will not be voting for Hillary. A lot of us will be voting for Jill Stein. And for anybody, including, and I have respect for him, including Tyrone Barnum, for people like him and others, not just him, but others, so many others, that say, we're wasting our vote, we're going to elect Trump. Shame on you, because if we don't, and yes, having a President Trump would be terrible, but if the establishment, if they don't really, if we just keep doing the same thing over and over and over, you know, our progressive didn't get the nomination, okay, we're going to vote for the lesser of two evils. If the American people keep doing that, we will not have the real change that Bernie has called for, the revolution. And Bernie has said the revolution is not just about him. Now, again, I am upset that he did endorse Bernie and say, hey, whatever, you know, because he doesn't want a President Trump. But all of us who are going to vote for the Green Party or Jill Stein, and there's a lot of us, those people, shut up and quit telling us that we're wasting our vote. No, we're not. This is the only way that we're going to tell the system, the DNC and the two-party system, that we really want the revolution, and we won't accept anything other.
Hey, Andrew, we got to wrap things up here because we're getting ready to hit our mandatory top-of-the-hour break here.
Okay, thanks. Shame on you, Tracy.
Yeah, right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, so, yep, the gaslighting is going to stop. I've already kicked a bunch of people and banned a bunch of people from Facebook. Stop trying to tell other people how to vote. You're gaslighting. You're being an a-hole. Knock it off. So those are the audio clips from the July 27th, 2016 episode of Southpaws. Andrew had mentioned the name of a particular show host at the time who is now the owner of this now former Pacifica affiliate. Just uttering his name makes me physically ill. I'll just say this. The amount of gaslighting and vote shaming that he did on his show was and still is disgusting. And you know what? I'll be honest, the gaslighting continues from the moderates within the Democratic Party. I don't even call them moderates, the centrists, the corporate-owned, the limousine liberals. The gaslighting is going to stop. I don't care if I lose listeners over it. I don't care if I lose patrons over it. I don't care if I lose donors over it. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, my name is on this show. It's my blood, sweat, and tears poured into this show. I will have the final say over the content of this program. What editorial direction it goes, what topics are discussed, what guests are on, will be, and always has been, my call and only my call. And if that's something you don't like, there's other alternatives. Go listen to Stephanie Miller. Go listen to these blah, blah, blah limousine liberals. I have friends that are still fans of Bill Maher, and I don't understand it. Bill Maher's becoming more like a Trumper every day. I don't get it. Ladies and gentlemen, what's it going to take for you to get fed up with the way things have been going? You can't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. It really is that simple. So some of you need to start making some changes, whether it's changing the dial from listening to this show or changing your way of thinking, because there's your choices. I hope that I provide education every week on this show, because that's the purpose of it. And if I haven't been doing that, then I need to shut this show down. It's that simple. That's going to do it for this week. I'm Darren Gibson. Please support independent media, the First Amendment, and a woman's right to choose.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.